It had been many years since I last took in the fresh, clean air and rolling green landscape of my boyhood home. The desert was all too different, but its never-ending sands and sky, mysterious and silent, intoxicated me from the moment I arrived. The peoples we were charged to subjugate seemed too benign for an enemy, and among the men of the regiment there was no will behind our mission. Penned in like livestock, we waited behind the walls for an attack that was never coming, and it was then, under the cruel sun's mean heat, that I determined to make a change. 1 week later, when my preparations were complete, I ran off into the night. Through the blackness I stumbled into a rocky crevice, falling more than 30 feet, losing my meager supplies, including my rifle and 2 canteens of water. My heart sank ever deeper when I realized my leg was badly cut, and my compass had been smashed to pieces. I picked myself up and started out into the desert, under the cover of the rapidly passing night, and by daylight, I made it to the outskirts of Ahorawadi. I forced a jagged stick into the sand and lay down in the shade of my outstretched coat to wait out the day, dozing and dreaming while both sleeping and awake. Anguish and calamity colluded with the blinding sun, magnifying my worries while a vulture patrolled the skies above me. Hours later, long after I sweat my last drop, I saw a dark rider on the horizon, making a steady approach. When he was close enough for me to see him better, I recognized his robe's pattern and reached for my pistol. When he arrived, the man dismounted and we exchanged pleasantries. In a matter of minutes, the man had a small fire going and he was brewing tea. He told me he was going east, a 2 days' journey. From there, he said, the coast was just another day's walk. I drank the tea and he offered me roasted goat's meat. The man said soldiers were watering nearby at Ahorawadi, and I was welcome to join him, volunteering, in essence, to be my guide. I could see no alternative, only his shifting eyes upon me, darting to and fro. At sunset, we started off into the abyss. A soft coat of moonlight blurred the emptiness, leaving me disoriented and confused, which is why I failed to protest when we started heading west. During our journey into the night, I told my guide how I admired his people, and he expounded on the various cultures and practices of the desert peoples, of which I had only a very superficial knowledge. An hour's time before sunrise, we reached a camp situated on a majestic plateau overlooking the sleeping desert. Before I knew next, my guide was speaking in a tongue I did not know with some of the men from the camp, and I was brought to a lavish tent with thick rugs and several burning lamps. Shortly after, a veiled woman in black entered the tent and extinguished the lamps before she slipped back out, and as the day's early light crept up over the horizon, I fell asleep, exhausted from my travels. When I opened my eyes, blood surged through me in shock when I noticed my shackled feet and naked body. Minutes later, a large bald man entered the tent and pulled me violently outside. A crowd was gathered, and among them, I recognized my guide, smiling and laughing like all the others. Suddenly, I felt a crash upon my head, and when I looked up, I saw 3 men, all of them massive in stature, hitting me with sticks. Several minutes into the beating, I lost consciousness of the crowd, and from then on, all I could see and hear were the terrible faces, gritted and mean, dispensing gruff laughter as they delivered savage blows that ripped my flesh and broke my bones. The beatings were administered at 2 points each day, just after sunrise and then after sunset. In between, an inner horror kept me company as I lay in the filthy mud where they chained me, a naked bloody pulp, shaking with fear of the next vicious session. Periodically, little boys came by to spit and urinate on me. Others kicked my face until an adult chased them away. All the while, I cowered as the sun took its course across the bitter white sky, and when nighttime arrived, so did my torturers. By firelight, the 3 men beat me once again before a jubilant crowd. In time, I lost them in this unrelenting haze of violence. Dripping blood pouring out my smashed head shaded me from their mocking glare. But unfortunately, like before, all I could see and hear were their sneers and gritted teeth, and demented laughter as they bear down upon me with each barbaric blow. Again I was dragged off and chained up in the mud to await my next thrashing. Naked, bloody and weak, I shivered in the cold night and trembled with fear and anticipation of dawn, which came all too quick. It was during that next sunrise session when I closed my eyes as they beat me, and in retaliation, my eyelids were promptly ripped off. With flowing blood running across my face, choking me on its thick stream, the three bald men continued their grisly work. And as the ritual dictated, when they were finished, I was again chained to a pole in a patch of muddy slop. For 7 days the beatings continued, 14 in all. And it was then, on the 8th day, early into the 15th beating, when I showed signs of being out of my head, that they ceased. Like every other beating, people were gathered, and the bald men pulled me before them. But unlike the other savage sessions, no terror showed on my face, and my body failed to tremble in fear. Instead, I laughed at them all, and I danced around spastically, flailing my shattered, bloody limbs wildly with glee. A different man then pulled the chain round my neck, dragging me to a tent near a raging pit of fire. Methodically, the man cut and shaped a sheet of tin to cover my head and body, ending just above my knees. The man cut out 2 holes for my arms and then fitted me tightly inside, before he hammered the sheeting closed around me. Next, he cut a thin rectangle less than 1 inch in width and 2 in length for my eyes, before sealing the top with another small sheet, which again he hammered into place. When he finished, I was completely encased inside the tin cylinder, locked inside by my own arms. Without warning or word, I was pushed to the ground, and when I finally got up, I was knocked down again. Many people were shouting and pointing, and when I turned my body to see where they were motioning, I saw the vast, empty desert at the bottom of the steep, rocky hill. I struggled to get up on my feet, and when I finally did, I lurched forward slowly, while the people jeered and spat on me. Then I was pushed, sending me rolling and sliding down the steep hill. I hit the bottom, and while I struggled to get up, a gunshot rang out, and through the tin and hole for my eyes, I could hear the muffled whiz of a bullet fly by me. With a whole new terror gripping me, I got up on my feet and shuffled along the sand as fast as I could, with stunted steps. I was sure another bullet was coming, and when its report rang out, I braced myself for the impact, and when it failed to make contact, a new panic hit me. I groped my way deeper into the unforgiving landscape, sweating the very last drops of my life my captors left in my dried, limp veins. Brightness became dark, then brilliant and bold. With all I had left, I continued to trek, with no idea where I was heading. Nearly lifeless, it was fear alone that propelled me along the hot rocks and sand. My mind was racing as I went, running through all the horrible possibilities that surely lay ahead, and my heart beat even faster when I thought I heard someone approaching from behind. I turned to look around, but no one was there. The camp was now far off behind me, and I felt a slight satisfaction to see I'd gotten this far. I positioned myself forward and continued to stagger ahead into the choking heat, walking for hours before I felt myself hit the ground. Unable to sit up, I floundered, spending the last of my energy. I could feel my life slipping away and fought to keep my eyes open, but darkness quickly engulfed me, and before the sun went down, I was dead.